Hi everybody, Dr. Dina here. I'm talking to you today from my home office, and what I'd like to do is share a recent experience I had a couple months ago back in the spring where I underwent a juice fast slash spring cleansing program, if you will, and I thought it would be useful for a lot of you to hear about my experience and maybe something you can benefit from as well. So to start with, each spring for the last 10 or 12 years or so, I've been taking somewhere between 1 to 2 or 3 weeks to undergo basically a juice fast or something very similar. And the reason I've done so is to tell you the story going a little bit back to my childhood. When I was 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere in that range, I developed significant hay fever allergy type of problems. So particularly in the spring, when there was a lot of pollen around and that type of thing, I wouldn't just sneeze like, here and there like a few people would and get some watery eyes. I was, really, really severe. My eyes would be running and itching all day. I could hardly see. They were red and swollen. I was using the Visine eye drops all the time. I'd sneeze hundreds and hundreds of times a day, blow my nose hundreds of times a day, and I would just be pretty debilitated, maybe 30 or so days per year. Sometimes I'd have to miss school, sometimes I'd have to miss work. Ironically, when I was in about junior high school, my dad quit his New York job where he commuted to New York City and started a landscaping business. And when I got tested for allergies, they said I was allergic to trees, grass, and weeds. And I worked for my dad's business and was around trees, grass, and weeds all the time. So there were some days there it was really difficult. So in any case, when I was 20 years old, while I was a junior in college, I was interested in raw food nutrition, had been into it for a couple of years at that point, and was also reading about fasting. So after a few shorter fasts, I underwent a 14-day total water fast, just drinking water for 14 days. And I did that in the winter. And when spring came that year, I was absolutely astounded that I barely had any hint of allergies that spring. It was incredible. I felt great all spring. Whereas for the previous 12 or so years, which when you're 20 years old, the previous 12 years is most of your life, I had really suffered quite a lot in the spring. So in addition to all the other benefits, which are numerous, I experienced from that fast, the allergies being gone was just amazing. And for the next 10 years or so, I barely had any allergy symptoms in the spring. A little bit here and there, but it was maybe at 10, maybe at the max 20% of the level that it had been previously. So that was great. Then back in late 1997, fall of 1997, I moved here to Northern California. I was done with chiropractic school, came to do an internship at a fasting center. Not surprisingly, my previous experience had impressed me so much with fasting that I wanted to learn more about it. So spring of 1998 comes along, and I suffered that year. It was the first time in many years I really had a tough spring in terms of allergies. And the next couple years, I really suffered quite a bit. Despite eating a real healthy diet and doing all the right things, I was super fit at the time, still had some trouble. And what I've heard, due to whatever's around here in Northern California, that people who have never had allergies before in their life, they move here and then they develop them. So if that can happen, well, me with my history, I guess I redeveloped them or was more susceptible. So although I didn't have the opportunity to water fast each spring, because you really have to go someplace and be supervised and rest and, just take some time off your life in order to do that, I thought, well, what if I juice fasted? I had done several different types of juice cleanses with and without psyllium and, different programs in the past. So I thought, well, what if I juice fast? Maybe that would be enough to get me through the spring more easily. And since I've been doing so, every spring I've been at maybe 10 to 20% of the symptoms I would have had I not juice fasted. In fact, that was put to the test a little bit because about 2 years ago, In the spring, my wife and I were building some new raised beds in our backyards, and we wanted to get our raised beds finished so we could plant them out before we went up further north in Northern California to teach one of our Science of Raw Food Nutrition series of courses, which is about 2.5 to 3 weeks. And so in other words, had we not gotten our planting done and the beds built before that, it would have been 3 or 4 weeks before we planted the stuff, and that would have really set us back. It would have been much later in the spring. So because of that, I did not juice fast that year, and I had more allergy issues. Despite eating well and doing all the right things, definitely noticed more significant issues. So in any case, getting back to why I do this each spring, that is my main incentive. And as an added bonus, it's a good thing to do. You feel better, you feel lighter. It's kind of like hitting the reset button in a lot of ways. You realize that, oh gee, I didn't need to eat a few nuts at night, or this extra thing or that extra thing. And so there's just an awful lot of benefits. So in any case, what I did this year is a little bit different. In the last several years, I've usually just consumed juices. Some days though, I would cheat a little at dinner time on the first night or sometimes the second night, and I'd actually make a fruit and green smoothie, still something light, but something a bit more dense and heavier than juice, just to kind of get me through the dinner time, those first few days, which are kind of tougher. And then after that, juice just seemed to be pretty easy, and I tend to even consume less juice as the days went along. Now, going back to that, I've done some other programs in the past. I've done some where you consume psyllium and bentonite and different herbs. I've sometimes done just straight juices. Sometimes I've tried enemas. Sometimes I've not done those. And it's really interesting that there's so many benefits to fiber. And I don't have time to go nearly into all of them here, but fiber is very useful for detoxification. For example, fiber binds to bile in our intestines, and bile comes out of our liver. Our liver is a main organ of detoxification. One of the ways that the liver detoxifies is it dumps toxins into the bile. When fiber's there, it binds to the bile, brings it out of the body. Fiber does so many other important things. And it seemed, though, that during those juice programs where I did do some of the psyllium fiber, everything seemed easier to me than compared to not doing so. But in the previous few years, I just wanted to keep it clean and do juice and not do so. So in thinking of all these considerations, I decided to do something a little bit different this year. I decided that I would drink juices during the day, and I've got a few videos coming up of some of my favorite juices that you can actually see me make, and I'll talk about and why they work and that type of thing. So I would drink juices during the day, and then I decided that in the evening I would make one meal. So one just simple meal of fruits and vegetables, nothing heavy, nothing dense, nothing cooked, just real simple. So it might be a really big salad of just fruits and vegetables, or maybe a fruit and green smoothie, something like that. And I thought I would see how that goes. So on the one hand, the juices are real light. On the other hand, I'm actually getting some fiber in, and it seemed to make more sense that I ought to get fiber in from whole foods, from fruits and vegetables, as opposed to some fiber powder stuff that comes out of a bottle that's all processed, that had to be made in a factory or some kind of processing plant. So in any case, it went really well. Had a few sniffly noses, a couple sneezes here and there from the pollen this spring, but for the most part, pretty smooth sailing, felt pretty good, all was well. And since that time, it's been about 2 months now, I've been eating a bit lighter, eating a bit cleaner. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, it's always a good reminder that eating lighter is better, even when you have a tendency to want to eat something a little heavier. Maybe you're comforted at the time, but you don't feel as good the next day. You don't feel as good the day after. So it's really been helpful, really been useful. And I think, though, no matter how you go about doing some type of program, even if you're not juicing, even if you're eating just fruits and vegetables with no extra, nothing dense or no dried fruit, or just all watery fruits and vegetables, that would be eating, but that is far easier for your body to deal with than what most people are eating. So anytime you make things easier for your body to deal with, your body's ability to cleanse, heal, and repair itself is going to be amplified or maximized, and that's going to be great. And if you can do that with things like fruits and vegetables that at the same time supply your body with all sorts of good nutrients that support your detoxification mechanism, support your liver and the other organs that are involved with that, well, then that's better yet. And that's the basic premise behind juice fasting and other type of cleanse programs. So no matter how you slice it, you're gonna do yourself a lot of good and you're gonna feel a lot better. Although you have to be intelligent, you have to be sensible. Sometimes it makes sense to have somebody help guide you who's had some experience with that, and I've helped guide a few people previously with my consulting practice, and that's always been useful. So in any case, that's basically the experience I wanted to share. Typically, I've juiced when I've been just doing the juice somewhere between like 7 and 14 days. This whole program I did for 3 or 4 weeks because I was eating throughout and had a few more calories coming in. I could actually go a bit longer. So it was a great experience. I hope that's been useful, and take a look for my upcoming videos on my favorite green juice that I've made and also my watermelon celery juice, which are 2 of my staples during any of my juice programs. Thanks so much and good luck.